I was the quiet girl, the one who sat in the back of the classroom, who never raised her hand, who spoke so softly that teachers often asked me to repeat myself. That was me. And honestly, I had made peace with it. Being invisible felt safer than being seen. But then something happened that forced me out of that comfortable silence. And what came after changed everything I thought I knew about myself. Before I continue, if stories like this inspire you, subscribe to the channel now, so you don't miss the next one. It was a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind of day where the sun barely breaks through the grey clouds and the hallways of Lincoln Middle School smell like wet concrete and cafeteria food. I was 12 years old, wearing my usual oversized hoodie that I could disappear into whenever I wanted. My name is Emma. Back then, the only thing people knew about me was that I existed, barely. My best friend Sarah was the complete opposite. Where I was silent, she was loud. Where I hid, she stood out. She had this energy that filled a room, this laugh that made everyone turn around. We were an unlikely pair, I know. People always wondered how we became friends. The truth is, Sarah never treated my quietness like a problem. She never pushed me to be louder or different. She just let me be me, and for that, I would have done anything for her. That morning, Sarah wasn't in homeroom. I noticed immediately because her desk, right next to mine, was empty. Mrs. Patterson took attendance and marked her absent without a second thought. But I knew Sarah. She never missed school without telling me first. Something felt off. By lunchtime, rumors were already spreading. Sarah had been caught doing something. Nobody knew exactly what, but the story kept changing. Some kids said she was cheating on a test. Others said she was fighting. One version claimed she had stolen money from a teacher's desk. The details didn't matter to them. They just wanted something to talk about, someone to tear down. That's how middle school works. 1 minute you're fine, and the next, everyone's whispering your name like it's a curse. I sat alone at our usual table in the cafeteria, pushing food around my tray, my stomach too tight to eat. I kept looking at the door, hoping Sarah would walk through and laugh about the whole stupid rumor, but she never came. After lunch, I was walking to my next class when I heard Principal Walker's voice echoing down the hallway. He was standing outside his office with Sarah. I stopped dead in my tracks, pressing myself against the lockers where they couldn't see me. Sarah looked small, which was wrong because Sarah never looked small. Her shoulders were hunched forward, her arms crossed tight over her chest. Her eyes were red. Principal Walker was talking in that low, stern voice adults use when they've already made up their minds. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. Suspension, parents, disappointed. The way he said it, like Sarah had already been tried and found guilty, made something hot and sharp twist in my chest. I wanted to walk away. Every instinct I had told me to turn around, go to class, stay out of it. That's what I always did. Stay quiet, stay safe, don't get involved. But then I saw Sarah's face again, and I remembered every time she had defended me. Every time someone made fun of my voice or the way I dressed. Sarah had been there, standing between me and them like a shield I never asked for but desperately needed. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. But I made my feet move forward. One step, then another, until I was standing right there in front of Principal Walker's office. He looked at me like I was a fly that had just landed on his desk. Annoying, unexpected. "Are you lost, young lady?" he asked. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Sarah turned and saw me, and her eyes went wide. She shook her head slightly, like she was trying to tell me to go, to save myself. But I couldn't. Not this time. "I need to talk to you," I managed to whisper. Principal Walker raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sand. I said, "I need to talk to you." About Sarah. There was a long pause. Principal Walker looked at Sarah, then back at me. He seemed genuinely surprised that I was still standing there. "This doesn't concern you," he said flatly. "Go to class." "But it does concern me," I said, and I was shocked at how clear my voice suddenly sounded. "She's my friend, and whatever you think she did, you're wrong." Principal Walker's expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "Young lady, I don't have time for this. Sarah has been caught in a serious situation, and unless you have actual information, I suggest you move along." I do have information. My voice was getting stronger now, like something inside me had finally woken up. I know what happened. I know Sarah didn't do what you think she did. That wasn't entirely true. I didn't know all the details. But I knew Sarah, and that was enough. Principal Walker crossed his arms. All right, you have 2 minutes. Tell me what you think you know. I looked at Sarah. She was staring at me with this mixture of fear and hope and disbelief. I took a deep breath. Yesterday after school, Sarah saw 3 8th graders cornering Jamie Rodriguez by the bike racks. They were taking his backpack, dumping everything out, laughing at him. Jamie's in 6th grade. He's small. He doesn't have a lot of friends. Sarah stepped in and told them to stop. They didn't, so she grabbed the backpack and gave it back to Jamie. The 8th graders got mad and said they were going to get her in trouble. I think that's what happened here. Principal Walker's face didn't change, but something in his eyes did. How do you know this? Because Jamie told me, I said. He was crying in the bathroom yesterday after it happened. I was there. I heard everything. He said Sarah was the only one who helped him. He said those same 8th graders have been bullying him all year, but nobody ever does anything about it. Where is Jamie now? Principal Walker asked, probably too scared to say anything, I replied. If you call him in here, those kids will make his life worse. But I'm telling you the truth. Sarah didn't do anything wrong. She was protecting someone who couldn't protect themselves. There was a long silence. Principal Walker looked at Sarah, really looked at her this time. Then he looked at me. I could feel my whole body trembling, but I kept my eyes on his. Wait here, he finally said, and disappeared into his office. Sarah grabbed my arm the second he was gone. Emma, what are you doing? You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, I said quietly. But you hate talking to people. You hate being noticed. I know, I said. But I hate the idea of you getting in trouble for something you didn't do even more. We stood there in the hallway for what felt like forever. Students passed by, glancing at us curiously. I felt exposed, like every eye in the school was on me. My old instinct to run was screaming in my head. But I stayed. Principal Walker came back out holding a file. He looked between the two of us, his expression unreadable. I just called Jamie's homeroom teacher, he said. She confirmed that Jamie has been having issues with a group of 8th grade students. She also said he mentioned something about another student helping him yesterday, but he was too scared to give names. He paused, and for the first time, I saw something that looked like regret cross his face. Sarah, I owe you an apology. Based on the report I received, I made assumptions I shouldn't have made. The situation was presented to me differently, and I should have investigated more thoroughly before jumping to conclusion. Sarah's mouth fell open. So I'm not suspended? No, Principal Walker said. You're not. In fact, what you did took courage. Standing up for someone who's being bullied is exactly the kind of behavior we should be encouraging, not punishing. He turned to me then, and I felt my stomach drop. And you, Emma, is it? That took courage too. Speaking up when you're scared is one of the hardest things a person can do. I'm impressed. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Both of you can go back to class now, Principal Walker said. But Sarah, I'd like you to come by my office tomorrow during lunch. I want to talk to you about getting involved in our peer mediation program. We need more students like you. Sarah nodded, still looking stunned. We walked away together, neither of us speaking until we turned the corner and were out of sight. Then Sarah threw her arms around me so hard I almost fell over. Thank you, she said into my shoulder. I can't believe you just did that. I can't believe you stood up to Principal Walker for me. I hugged her back, my hands still shaking. I can't believe it either, but something had shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I had used my voice when it mattered. I had stepped out of the shadows, and the world hadn't ended. If anything, it had gotten a little bit better. If this story has already affected you up to this point, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because there are other real and emotional stories that you can't miss. The rest of that day passed in a blur. I went to my classes, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the moment in Principal Walker's office, the way my voice had sounded when I finally spoke up. It felt surreal, like it had happened to someone else. But it hadn't. It had been me. By the time I got home, my mom was already in the kitchen making dinner. She looked up when I walked in, and immediately noticed something was different. "Good day?" she asked. I thought about lying, saying it was just a normal Tuesday. But instead, I told her everything. About Sarah, about Jamie, about standing in that hallway even though every part of me wanted to run. My mom listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she came over and hugged me tight. "I'm so proud of you," she said softly. "That must have been terrifying." "It was," I admitted, "but you did it anyway." That's what real courage is, Emma. It's not about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing regardless. Her words stayed with me that night as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I had always thought courage was for people like Sarah, people who were naturally bold and fearless. I never imagined it could belong to someone like me too. The next morning when I got to school, something was different. As I walked through the hallways, a few kids I'd never spoken to before nodded at me or said hi. Jamie Rodriguez, the 6th grader Sarah had helped, stopped me by my locker. "You're Emma, right?" he said quietly. "Yeah," I said. "Thank you," he said, "for telling Principal Walker what happened. Nobody's ever stood up for me like that before." Before I could respond, he hurried away, but I saw him smile as he left. That small moment filled me with a warmth I'd never felt before. At lunch, Sarah wasn't at our usual table. I found her in Principal Walker's office, just like he'd asked. Through the window, I could see them talking. Sarah was animated, gesturing with her hands, the way she always did when she was excited about something. Principal Walker was nodding, actually listening. When Sarah came out 20 minutes later, she was glowing. "He wants me to help start a bullying prevention program," she said, practically bouncing. "He said he's been trying to figure out how to reach students who don't feel safe reporting problems, and he thinks having students lead the program would make a difference. Emma, he wants you to help too." "Me?" I said, my voice jumping an octave. "Why me?" "Because of what you did yesterday. He said he needs people who understand what it's like to be quiet, to feel invisible. He thinks you could help create a space where kids like us feel heard." "I don't know, Sarah. I'm not good at that kind of thing." "You literally confronted the principal yesterday," Sarah said with a grin. "If you can do that, you can do anything." She had a point, but the idea still terrified me. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I met with Principal Walker several times during lunch. He listened to our ideas about how to make the school safer, how to encourage kids to speak up without fear of retaliation. At first, I barely said anything. I let Sarah do most of the talking. But slowly, as Principal Walker asked me direct questions and actually waited for my answers, I started contributing more. It turned out that being quiet had given me a different perspective. I noticed things that louder people missed. I saw the kids who ate lunch alone, the ones who kept their heads down in the hallways, the ones who flinched when teachers called on them. I understood them because I was them. One afternoon, Principal Walker asked me to present some of our ideas to the school board. My immediate reaction was panic. "I can't do that," I said quickly. "I can't stand in front of a room full of adults and talk." Principal Walker leaned back in his chair. "2 months ago, you couldn't stand up to me in a hallway." "But you did. Why was that?" "Because Sarah needed me," I said. "Exactly," he said. "And right now, every quiet kid in this school needs you. They need someone who understands what it's like to be overlooked to show them that their voices matter too." His words hit me hard. I thought about Jamie. I thought about all the times I had stayed silent when I saw something wrong, too afraid to speak up. I thought about the version of myself who would have walked past Principal Walker's office that day. And I realized I didn't want to be her anymore. So I said yes. The school board meeting was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. My hands shook so badly that I had to clasp them together to keep the papers from rattling. My voice wavered at first, barely louder than a whisper. But then I looked out at the audience and saw Sarah in the front row, giving me a thumbs up. I saw Principal Walker nodding encouragingly, and I saw my mom, who had taken off work to be there, with tears in her eyes and a proud smile on her face. I thought about every kid who felt invisible, and I made my voice stronger. I told them about what it's like to be the quiet one, to have ideas and feelings and fears that nobody ever asks about. I told them about Jamie, about Sarah, about how one moment of courage had changed everything. I told them that schools needed to be places where every voice mattered, not just the loud ones. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then one board member started clapping, and others joined in. It wasn't a standing ovation or anything dramatic, but it was real. They had listened. They had heard me. After the meeting, Principal Walker came up to me. "You did great, Emma. The board is approving the program. We start next semester." "Really?" I said, still in shock. "Really? And I want you to know something. When I first met you that day in the hallway, I saw a scared kid who I didn't think would last 2 minutes. I was wrong. You're one of the bravest students I've ever met." "I'm not brave," I said automatically. "I'm just trying." "That's exactly what brave is," he said. "And for what it's worth, you changed my mind about a lot of things that day." I realized I'd been making assumptions about students based on who was loudest, who demanded attention. I wasn't seeing kids like you, and that was my failure, not yours. You taught me to look harder, to listen better. So thank you. I didn't know what to say to that. Principal Walker, this intimidating authority figure I'd been terrified of, was thanking me. It felt impossible, but that's what happened. The following semester, everything changed. Not overnight, and not in some magical movie kind of way. It was slower than that, more real. The peer mediation program launched in January, and Sarah and I became its first student leaders. We had a small office, really just a converted storage room near the guidance counselor's suite, but it was ours. We decorated it with posters about kindness and respect, put some bean bags in the corner, and kept a box of tissues on the desk because we knew we'd need them. At first, hardly anyone came. Kids didn't trust it yet. They thought it was just another adult program disguised as something student-led. But then, Jamie Rodriguez came in one afternoon with a friend who was having trouble with some kids in his gym class. We listened. We didn't judge. We didn't tell them what to do. We just created space for them to figure it out themselves. And we helped them practice what they wanted to say to the teacher. Word spread slowly. One kid told another. That kid told someone else. By February, we were seeing 3 or 4 students a week. By March, we couldn't keep up with the demand. Principal Walker had to bring in 2 more student mediators, then 2 more after that. But here's what nobody tells you about becoming visible. Once people see you, they don't stop seeing you. And not everyone likes what they see. There was a girl named Brittany Chen in my grade. She was popular, the kind of girl who always had a crowd around her, who set trends instead of following them. We'd never interacted much before. I was beneath her notice, which had always been fine with me. But after the peer mediation program started getting attention, after my presentation to the school board got mentioned in the local paper, Brittany started paying attention, and she didn't like what she saw. It started small, comments in the hallway that I could almost ignore. "Oh look, it's Emma the hero. Must be nice being the principal's favorite." That kind of thing. I tried to brush it off, tried to tell myself it didn't matter. But it did, because even though I was braver than I used to be, I was still me. Still the girl who hated conflict, who wanted everyone to just get along. Sarah noticed immediately. She wanted to confront Brittany, to defend me the way I'd defended her. But I asked her not to. I didn't want to make it worse. I didn't want to prove Brittany right, that I couldn't handle being noticed. Then one day in April, everything escalated. I was sitting in the cafeteria with Sarah and a few other kids from the mediation program. We were planning an assembly about inclusion, throwing around ideas, laughing about something stupid one of us had said. I was relaxed, happy, even. I didn't notice Brittany and her friends approaching until they were standing right next to our table. "So this is the anti-bullying squad," Brittany said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "How adorable. Tell me, Emma, does it feel good playing the victim and the hero at the same time?" I felt my face go hot. Everyone was looking at us now. Sarah started to stand up, but I put my hand on her arm. "I'm not playing anything," I said quietly. "We're just trying to help people." "Help people," Brittany repeated mockingly. "Is that what you call running to the principal every time someone hurts your feelings? Is that what you call getting special treatment because you made him feel guilty for doing his job?" "That's not what happened," Sarah said sharply. Brittany ignored her, keeping her eyes locked on mine. "You know what I think, Emma? I think you're just desperate for attention. I think you found a way to make people care about boring, invisible you, and now you're milking it for everything it's worth." Each word felt like a slap. Part of me wanted to shrink down, to disappear into my hoodie like I used to. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger over the past months, refused to back down. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I stood up anyway. "You're right about one thing," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I was invisible. For years, I was invisible. And you know what? That invisibility taught me to see other people who felt the same way. It taught me to notice the kids who eat lunch alone, who get pushed around, who cry in bathroom stalls hoping nobody hears them. So yeah, maybe I am desperate for attention, but not for me, for them. For every kid who thinks their voice doesn't matter. Brittany's smirk faltered slightly. The cafeteria had gone quiet around us. Even the lunch monitors were watching. "And if you think the peer mediation program is about getting special treatment, you're wrong," I continued. "It's about creating a space where people can solve problems without adults taking over. It's about teaching kids that their conflicts matter enough to work through, instead of just getting punished for them. If that makes me a hero in your eyes, fine. But I'm not doing it for a trophy or recognition. I'm doing it because I remember what it feels like to be powerless, and I don't want other kids to feel that way." For a long moment, nobody moved. Brittany stared at me, and I could see her trying to decide whether to escalate or retreat. Finally, she scoffed. "Whatever," she said. But she walked away without another word, her friends trailing behind her. I sat back down, my whole body shaking. Sarah grabbed my hand under the table. "That was amazing," she whispered. "I feel like I'm going to throw up," I whispered back. But I didn't throw up. I finished my lunch. I went to my next class. I survived, and something about that confrontation, as awful as it had been, made me realize how far I'd actually come. The old Emma would never have stood up like that. She would have fled the cafeteria in tears. But this Emma, this new version of me that was still emerging, had found her voice even in the most uncomfortable moment. After that day, Brittany left me alone. I don't know if it was because I'd stood up to her, or because she'd realized her words didn't have the power she thought they did. Maybe both, but the unexpected thing was what happened next. 2 weeks later, Brittany showed up at the peer mediation office. She stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable, her usual confidence completely absent. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. "Alone?" Sarah shot me a look that clearly said do not trust her, but I nodded. Sarah reluctantly left, and Brittany sat down in one of the bean bags, staring at her hand. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, "for what I said in the cafeteria. It was cruel, and it wasn't true." I waited, not sure where this was going. "The truth is," Brittany continued, "I was jealous. I saw you doing something that mattered, something real, and I felt threatened by it. I've spent so much time trying to be popular, trying to be the person everyone likes, that I forgot to actually be a good person. And when I saw you getting recognition for being genuine and kind, it made me realize how empty everything I've been doing actually is." She looked up at me then, and I saw that her eyes were red. "I've been dealing with some stuff at home," she said quietly. "My parents are getting divorced, and it's messy. I've been taking it out on everyone around me, but especially on people like you, because I guess I thought if I could make someone else feel small, I'd feel bigger. But it doesn't work that way. It just makes everyone feel terrible." I didn't know what to say. This vulnerable version of Brittany was so different from the girl who'd confronted me in the cafeteria that it felt like talking to a completely different person. "I'm sorry you're going through that," I said finally. "That sounds really hard." "It is," Brittany said, "and I don't expect you to forgive me or anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that what you're doing with this program actually matters. My little sister is in 6th grade, and some girls have been giving her a hard time. She came to one of your mediation sessions last week, and it helped her. She came home and actually talked to me about it, so thank you for that." She stood up to leave, but I stopped her. "Brittany, wait. If you ever need to talk about the divorce stuff or anything else, we're here. That's what the program is for. It's not just for other people. It's for everyone." She looked surprised, then nodded. "Thanks, Emma. Maybe I'll take you up on that." She did take me up on it. Not right away, but a few weeks later, Brittany came back and talked to Sarah and me about what she was going through with her parents. We listened. We didn't try to fix it. We just gave her space to be honest without judgment. And over time, something unexpected happened. Brittany became one of our most passionate advocates. She started telling her friends about the program, encouraging kids who were struggling to reach out, even volunteering to help with some of our events. It taught me something important. People aren't always who they seem to be on the surface. Everyone's fighting battles we know nothing about, and sometimes the people who seem the cruelest are the ones who are hurting the most. By the end of the school year, the peer mediation program had become a central part of Lincoln Middle School. We'd helped dozens of students work through conflicts, from friendship drama to bullying situations to family stress affecting schoolwork. Principal Walker told us that disciplinary referrals had dropped by 30% since the program started. But more than the statistics, I saw the change in the hallways. Kids were kinder, more aware, more willing to step in when they saw someone struggling. The school board asked me to present an update on the program's success at their end-of-year meeting. This time, I wasn't as scared. I'd learned that my voice, quiet as it might be, could still create change when I used it. At the meeting, I talked about what we'd accomplished, but I also talked about what still needed to happen. I talked about the kids who were still too afraid to ask for help, the ones who suffered in silence because they didn't believe anyone would listen. I talked about how systems fail students when adults are too busy or too overwhelmed to notice the warning signs. And I talked about how empowering students to help each other created a ripple effect that no amount of adult intervention could match. When I finished, one of the board members asked me a question. "Emma, what made you speak up that day for your friend? What gave you the courage when you'd been quiet for so long?" I thought about it carefully before answering. I think it was realizing that staying silent was actually more painful than speaking up. I'd spent so long being afraid of what might happen if people noticed me, but I forgot to consider what would happen if I never tried. When I saw my friend being treated unfairly, I had a choice. I could protect my comfort, or I could protect her. And in that moment, protecting her mattered more than protecting myself. The board member nodded slowly. "That's wisdom beyond your years, Emma. Thank you for sharing that." As the meeting wrapped up and people filed out, Principal Walker pulled me aside. "I have something to tell you," he said. "The district is considering expanding the peer mediation program to all middle schools in the county next year. They want to use Lincoln as the model, and they want you and Sarah to help train student leaders at the other schools. It would mean some after-school commitments and maybe some travel to other campuses. But I think you two would be perfect for it." My first instinct was to say no. The thought of going to unfamiliar schools, standing in front of rooms full of strangers, teaching them what we'd learned, it all felt overwhelming. But then I thought about Jamie. I thought about Brittany. I thought about all the quiet kids in all the other schools who needed someone to show them that their voices mattered. "I'll do it," I said. "If Sarah's in, I'm in." Principal Walker smiled. "I had a feeling you'd say that. You've changed a lot this year, Emma. But I think the most important thing is that you're still you. You didn't become loud or aggressive or someone you're not. You just found a way to be yourself more fully. That's rare." His words stayed with me as I walked home that afternoon. He was right. I hadn't transformed into Sarah or Brittany or anyone else. I was still quiet most of the time. I still preferred listening to talking. I still wore my oversized hoodies and sat in the back of classrooms when I could. But now, when it mattered, I knew I could step forward. I knew my quiet voice could still be heard if I had the courage to use it. That summer, Sarah and I spent 2 weeks at a district training session, teaching other students how to set up peer mediation programs at their school. It was exhausting and exhilarating. Some kids were natural leaders who took to it immediately. Others were more like me, uncertain and scared but willing to try. I found that I related most to those kids. I could see myself in their hesitation, their fear of being noticed, and I could tell them truthfully that it gets easier, that courage is a muscle you can strengthen with practice. On the last day of training, a girl named Maya approached me. She was from a school across town, small and shy with dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Of course." "How did you know it was worth it?" she asked. "Speaking up, I mean. How did you know that the risk of things going wrong was worth taking the chance?" I thought about that day in the hallway outside Principal Walker's office. I thought about how terrified I'd been, how every instinct had told me to walk away. I didn't know, I said honestly. I was absolutely terrified that it would backfire, that I'd make things worse, that I'd embarrass myself and nothing would change. But I realized something important. If I didn't try, I'd already lost. At least by speaking up, there was a chance, however small, that things could get better. And in my experience, that chance is always worth taking. Maya nodded slowly. My best friend is being bullied, she said. I've known for months, but I haven't said anything because I'm scared of making it worse. But after this week, after hearing your story, I think I need to try, even if I'm terrified. You're already braver than you think, I told her. The fact that you're here, learning how to help, means you care enough to do something. That's the first step. She hugged me then, quickly and awkwardly, before hurrying away. I watched her go and felt that same warmth I'd felt when Jamie had thanked me. This was why it mattered. This was why stepping out of the shadows, as scary as it had been, was worth every uncomfortable moment. When school started again in the fall, I was in 8th grade, my last year at Lincoln Middle School before high school. The peer mediation program was stronger than ever, with 12 student leaders now, instead of just Sarah and me. We'd trained them over the summer, passed on everything we'd learned, and watched them take ownership of the program in ways that made it even better. But something unexpected happened that fall. Something that tested everything I thought I'd learned about courage and speaking up. It was October again, almost exactly a year after that day in the hallway. I was walking to the peer mediation office during lunch when I saw a crowd gathered near the gymnasium. That kind of crowd that forms when something's happening, when everyone wants to watch but nobody wants to get involved. I felt my stomach drop because I knew that energy. I'd seen it before. I pushed through the circle of students and saw him. Marcus Webb, a 7th grader I'd seen around but never really talked to. He was on the ground, his backpack ripped open, papers and books scattered everywhere. Standing over him were 3 guys from the football team, laughing. One of them kicked Marcus's binder, sending more papers flying. "Get up, loser," one of them said. "We're not done with you yet." Marcus stayed down, his arms wrapped around his head. He wasn't fighting back. He wasn't saying anything. He was just trying to survive until they got bored. And everyone was watching. Dozens of students, including some I knew from the mediation program, and nobody was doing anything. They were just standing there with their phones out, recording it, turning someone's humiliation into entertainment. Something inside me snapped. I didn't think. I just moved. I walked straight into the middle of that circle and stood between Marcus and those 3 guys. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out, but I stood there anyway. "That's enough," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard it. The biggest guy, Tyler Morrison, looked at me like I was an insect. "Excuse me?" I said, "That's enough. Leave him alone." Tyler laughed, and his friends joined in. "Oh look, it's the principal's pet. What are you going to do, Emma? Run and tell on us?" "No," I said. "I'm just asking you to stop, right now." Tyler took a step closer to me. He was at least 6 inches taller, and probably outweighed me by 50 pounds. "Or what? You going to make me?" My legs wanted to run. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to get out of there. But I thought about Marcus on the ground. I thought about every time I'd been scared, and someone had stepped in for me. I thought about Maya at the training session, asking how I knew it was worth the risk. "I don't want to fight you, Tyler," I said, my voice shaking now. "But I'm not moving. If you want to keep going, you'll have to go through me first." For a long moment, nobody moved. Tyler stared at me, trying to decide if I was serious. Behind me, I heard Marcus getting to his feet. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the phones had stopped recording. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Step back, Tyler. Now." I turned and saw Principal Walker pushing through the crowd. Behind him were 2 teachers and the school resource officer. Tyler's face went pale. "My office," Principal Walker said, pointing at Tyler and his friends. "All 3 of you. Now." They left without argument, shooting angry looks at me as they passed. The crowd started to disperse, suddenly very interested in getting to class. Principal Walker turned to Marcus. "Are you hurt?" "No, sir," Marcus said quietly, "just embarrassed." "Come with me. Let's get you cleaned up." and then we'll talk about what happened. Marcus started gathering his things, and I bent down to help him. He looked at me with these huge brown eyes filled with gratitude and shame. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered. "Yes, I did," I said. "Nobody deserves to be treated like that." Principal Walker waited until Marcus had collected his stuff, then turned to me. "Emma, can you come to my office in 15 minutes? I'd like to talk to you too." "Am I in trouble?" I asked. "No," he said. "Quite the opposite." After Marcus left with the counselor, and the crowd had completely cleared, Sarah found me still standing there by the gymnasium. "I just heard what you did," she said, grabbing my shoulders. "Are you insane? Those guys are massive. They could have seriously hurt you." "I know," I said. My hands were still shaking. "I can't believe I just did that." "I can," Sarah said, and she was smiling even though her eyes were worried. "You're the bravest person I know, Emma. You know that, right?" "I'm not brave," I said automatically. "I'm terrified." "I'm still terrified." "That's what makes it brave," she said, echoing the words my mom had told me a year ago. When I got to Principal Walker's office, Marcus was sitting in one of the chairs, holding an ice pack to his face. I hadn't even realized they'd hit him. Principal Walker gestured for me to sit in the other chair. "Marcus has been telling me that this has been going on for weeks," Principal Walker said. "Tyler and his friends have been targeting him ever since Marcus made the soccer team instead of one of their friends. Marcus, why didn't you come to the peer mediation program or tell a teacher?" Marcus stared at his lap. "Because I thought I could handle it, and because I was scared that telling would make it worse." I understood that completely. That fear of making things worse had kept me silent for years. "Emma," Principal Walker continued, "what you did out there was both incredibly brave and incredibly dangerous. You put yourself in harm's way to protect another student. While I appreciate the courage that took, I need you to understand that you could have been seriously hurt. Next time, get an adult immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself." "But if I'd left to find an adult, they would have hurt him more," I said. "There wasn't time." Principal Walker sighed. "You're right. And that's a failure on our part as a school. Students shouldn't have to choose between their safety and doing the right thing. We should have systems in place that make both possible." He turned to Marcus. "Tyler and his friends are being suspended, and their parents have been called. This behavior is completely unacceptable, and there will be serious consequences. But I also want to know what we can do to make sure you feel safe here going forward. Would you be willing to work with our peer mediation team to develop better reporting systems for situations like this?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir. And I want to help other kids who are going through the same thing. Nobody should have to deal with this alone." Over the next few weeks, Marcus became one of our most active volunteers in the peer mediation program. His experience gave him insight that the rest of us didn't have, and he wasn't afraid to talk about what he'd been through. He started a support group specifically for students dealing with bullying, and it filled up immediately. Turns out there were a lot more kids suffering in silence than any of us had realized. Tyler and his friends came back after their suspension, but something had changed. Maybe it was the consequences. Maybe it was the fact that their actions had been recorded by dozens of phones, and they couldn't deny what they'd done. Or maybe it was seeing that the school was actually taking it seriously this time. Whatever the reason, they left Marcus alone. They left everyone alone. But the most unexpected thing came 2 months later. Tyler showed up at the peer mediation office, alone. He stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable, reminding me painfully of when Brittany had done the same thing. "Can I talk to someone?" he asked. I was the only one there. Sarah was at a dentist appointment, and the other mediators were in class. I almost said no. Almost told him to come back later when someone else was available. But then I remembered what this program was supposed to be about. Second chances. Understanding. Growth. "Come in," I said. Tyler sat down heavily in one of the bean bags. He didn't look at me for a long time. "I was wrong," he finally said. "What I did to Marcus, what I said to you, all of it. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." I waited, letting him continue. "My dad is really intense about sports. Always has been. When I didn't make starting lineup this year, he was furious. Kept telling me I was soft, that I needed to toughen up, that I was an embarrassment. I took all that anger, and I put it on Marcus because it was easier than standing up to my dad. But that doesn't make it right. Nothing makes it right. He looked up at me then, and I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. I know you probably hate me, and I don't blame you. I hate me too right now. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. I'm talking to the counselor about my anger, and I'm going to apologize to Marcus and if he'll let me. That takes courage, I said quietly. Admitting you were wrong, trying to change. That's harder than most people realize. Tyler nodded. You know what the weird thing is? When you stood up to me that day, I was actually relieved. Someone finally stopped me before I did something I couldn't take back. I was so angry all the time, and I didn't know how to make it stop. But you did. You made it stop. I don't know if I believe that completely. I think Tyler stopped because he got caught, because there were consequences. But I also thought maybe there was some truth in what he said. Maybe being confronted, being forced to face what he was doing, had been a wake-up call. Tyler did apologize to Marcus. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and Marcus didn't forgive him right away. But it was a start, and over time I saw Tyler actually trying. He stopped hanging around with those same friends. He started volunteering for a youth mentorship program downtown. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying, and that counted for something. As the school year moved towards spring, I started thinking about high school, about leaving Lincoln Middle School and starting over somewhere new. Part of me was excited. A fresh start, new challenges, new opportunities. But another part of me was scared. What if high school was different? What if the courage I'd found here didn't translate? What if I reverted back to that quiet, invisible girl who was too afraid to speak up? Sarah and I talked about it one afternoon while we were organizing files in the mediation office. We'd both be going to the same high school next year, which was comforting, but it was still a huge unknown. What if we can't start a program like this at the high school? Sarah asked. What if nobody takes us seriously because we're freshmen? Then we'll prove them wrong, I said. Just like we did here. Sarah grinned. Listen to you, being all confident and stuff. Remember when you used to hide in your hoodie and barely talk to anyone? I remember, I said, but that person isn't gone. She's still part of me. I still get scared. I still want to hide sometimes. The difference is now I know I don't have to let that fear control me. That's the most important thing you've learned, Sarah said. And it's the thing I want to make sure I never forget either. That courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. In May, our last month at Lincoln Middle School, the administration asked Sarah and me to speak at the 8th grade graduation ceremony. They wanted us to talk about our experience with the peer mediation program and what we'd learned. It would be in front of the entire 8th grade class, their families, all the teachers and staff, hundreds of people. My first instinct was to panic, but then I remembered everything that had led to this moment. Every time I'd been scared and spoke up anyway. Every time I'd chosen courage over comfort. Every time I'd used my voice even when it shook. I said yes. The night of graduation, I stood backstage in my cap and gown, my speech notes clutched in my sweaty hands. Sarah was next to me, equally nervous. Through the curtain, I could see the auditorium filling up with people. I saw my mom in the 3rd row, already crying even though the ceremony hadn't started. I saw Principal Walker near the stage, talking to some parents. I saw Marcus and Brittany and Jamie, and so many other kids whose lives had intersected with mine over the past year. You ready? Sarah asked. No, I said, but let's do it anyway. When our turn came, Sarah went first. She talked about how the peer mediation program had changed the culture of our school, how it had given students a voice in solving their own problems. She was confident and articulate and funny, everything I'd always admired about her. Then it was my turn. I walked to the microphone, looked out at all those faces, and felt that familiar wave of fear. But this time, instead of trying to fight it or ignore it, I acknowledged it. I let it be there alongside the courage I'd built. A year and a half ago, I started. I was the quietest person in this school. I never raised my hand in class. I never spoke up in groups. I spent most of my time trying to be invisible because being seen felt too dangerous. But then something happened that changed everything. My best friend needed me, and in that moment, staying silent became more dangerous than speaking up. I told them about that day in the hallway with Principal Walker. I told them about the fear, about the shaking hands, about wanting to run away but choosing to stay instead. I told them about Marcus and Tyler and Brittany, and all the complicated, messy, real situations that had taught me what courage actually looks like. The thing about courage, I said, is that it's not something you're born with. It's something you build, one scary moment at a time. Every time you speak up when it's easier to stay quiet. Every time you stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves. Every time you admit you were wrong and try to do better. You're building courage. And eventually, those moments add up. They transform you. Not into someone different, but into a fuller version of who you already are. I looked directly at my mom then, and she was smiling through her tears. So to my fellow 8th graders I said, when you go to high school next year, remember this. Your voice matters. Your experiences matter. Your courage matters. You don't have to be loud to make a difference. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. You just have to care enough about something or someone to push through the fear and do what's right anyway. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the applause started, and it didn't stop for a long time. My mom was on her so was Principal Walker. So were Marcus and Brittany and Jamie and so many others. Sarah grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight, and I realized I was crying. After the ceremony, people came up to talk to me. Parents thanked me for helping their kids. Teachers told me how proud they were. Classmates I barely knew hugged me and told me my speech had meant something to them. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. But the moment that mattered most came at the very end. A girl I didn't recognize, maybe a 7th grader, approached me nervously. She had the same look I used to see in the mirror every day. That look of someone trying to disappear. I just wanted to say thank you, she whispered. I heard your speech, and it made me realize I don't have to stay quiet about something that's been bothering me. I'm going to talk to a teacher tomorrow about something that's been happening. And I'm only able to do that because you showed me it's possible. She hurried away before I could respond, but I didn't need to say anything. That was enough. That was everything. As I drove home with my mom that night, she asked me how I felt. Different, I said. Good different. Like I'm not the same person I was when 8th grade started, but I'm also more myself than I've ever been. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, she said. You didn't change who you are, sweetheart. You just discovered who you already were underneath all that fear. She was right. The quiet girl was still there. She always would be. But now she had a voice, and she knew how to use it. High school turned out to be different, but not in the way I feared. Sarah and I did start a peer mediation program there, with the help of some teachers who believed in what we were doing. It took time, and there were setbacks, but eventually it worked. We trained new students, built new systems, created new spaces for voices that needed to be heard. I never became the loudest person in the room. I never wanted to be. But I learned that quiet voices can be just as powerful as loud ones when they speak with conviction. I learned that courage isn't a personality trait. It's a choice you make over and over again. And I learned that one moment of bravery can ripple outward in ways you never expect, touching lives you never knew needed touching. Today, I'm in college studying social work. I want to help create systems that empower people to advocate for themselves and others. I still think about that day in the hallway with Principal Walker, about the fear that almost stopped me and the courage that pushed me forward anyway. That moment changed the trajectory of my entire life, and it started with a simple decision to care more about someone else than I cared about my own comfort. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and comment below which part moved you the most. And before you go, there's a recommended video right here that will give you chills. Watch it now. Have you ever judged someone and later discovered you were wrong? Or do you believe everyone has a hidden talent waiting to be discovered? Share your thoughts in the comments.